What is the purpose of a film? To entertain? To provoke thought? To make money? These are all possibilities, but to boil down every film to just one purpose seems a little bit reductive. In all honesty, every movie is very different. However, the film that I'll be talking about today has a purpose I really admire: to educate, to show a very real, very important side of history that is often overlooked. Today, we'll be examining the educational value of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. The film opens with some insightful narration.
History prefers legends to men.
So true, King.
History remembers the battle and forgets the blood.
It does? What does this mean exactly? Was it just for alliteration? I bet it was just for alliteration. Oh! It's revealed that the narration is from the perspective of Lincoln himself in a letter he's writing. This letter carries us to a flashback of Lincoln's childhood, and at about 2 minutes in, we get that Abraham Lincoln was not a racist child. He had black friends treatment.
Black friend, you down, Will! What? He's my friend!
This is a subtle way of showing that Abraham Lincoln is not racist, because he's definitely friends with this black child, and, that's why there's so many scenes with them together. However, things get even more subtle when Child Lincoln grabs a fucking axe and attempts to execute the racist guy who's being mean to the black kid. What I love about this scene is how much context there is. Absolutely none. The importance of this scene is not one made important by the context of the film it's in, but an importance imprinted onto the film by the audience itself. These audience expectations play into the function of the scene in that the filmmakers were aware enough to know that they would need to make Abraham Lincoln immediately not racist, but simultaneously, the filmmakers were stupid enough to make an awesome scene about a child trying to kill a grown man with a fucking axe. Hey, here's an idea. You can say no if you want, but if you want to make it seem like whipping a black child is a bad thing, don't make it look fucking awesome. One thing this scene does well is establish the style of the movie, which is to say, complete insanity. The sound design is insane. The camera angles are insane. The acting is insane.
He's my friend!
This movie is insane. What the fuck is that? Why does him licking his lips need that sound effect? In the next scene, young Lincoln is just chilling when this creepy figure walks into the house and spooks him and his mom.
What's happening to her, Father? Please help her. Please, I beg you. You gotta do something, Father.
The editing here is... I don't know where to begin. Did they think that the jump cuts made this more scary? Did they think the ADR made this more suspenseful?
Please, I beg you. You gotta do something, Father.
Lincoln comes down to talk to his mother and read some stuff, and... Fuck, bro, what is this sound design?
Flying like a shooting star. The present day.
Lincoln's mom dies in the middle of him reading, so we cut to Lincoln and his dad at her gravestone, where Lincoln's dad says some very fatherly shit, and then he also dies, but that apparently only warranted a line of narration and not a snowy funeral scene. Anyway, it's 9 years later, and apparently Lincoln thinks that he's Batman?
No longer bound by my promise. I tried to fortify the nerve to pursue my vengeance.
Abe is confronted by a stranger in the bar, and I find myself again questioning the sound design choices. We cut to Abe under a dock for some fucking reason, and then these strangers have some Tarantino-esque dialogue. Sorkin-esque dialogue. William Wilder-esque dialogue. Billy Wilder-esque dialogue. Lumet-esque dialogue.
Ah, yes, sir. We've been looking all over, sir. Searching high and low.
Low's more likely.
Turns out Abe was here to kill this dude he believes killed his mother, but the gun misfires, so he runs away as the tall hat guy starts evil laughing.
Where the hell you running to?
No much like tasting chicken.
There are two kinds of men, Mr. Lincoln. Those that have the guts to pull the trigger, and those who do not.
Wait, are you fucking stupid? He did pull the trigger. It didn't work. Dumbass. Whore. I hate you. Abe's able to reload the gun and shoots the hat dude in the face. He's totally fine with this result and is ready to walk away when the motherfucker reincarnates on his ass and starts tearing him to shreds. However, the hot guy from earlier shows up and logarithmically beats up this vampire. Abe wakes up in a strange house and starts investigating, hearing sounds of violence.
Might I suggest that we begin by closing the door?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
As the scene progresses, the hot guy explains that his name is Henry, and after a sample of Abraham Lincoln's acting...
What were you doing there? And
Like, guys, I know Daniel Day-Lewis was taken, but this was the best you could do? Jesus Christ.
I doubt he even knew his target was a vampire.
A vampire?
Anyway, I think Henry should be the main character.
If what you say is true, you could help me kill him.
After a 14-second conversation, Abe convinces Henry to teach him how to hunt vampires. Henry is showing off his guns when we get to my favorite scene in the entire film. I would try to describe this scene to you, but words don't do it justice.
I'd like you to chop this tree down with a single swing.
That tree? It's gotta be more than a foot across. That's impossible.
But it isn't a tree. It's what you hate most in the world. Tell me what you hate.
I hate that my mother was taken away.
Inadequate.
That my mother, father, everyone that we knew lived in fear.
Pathetic.
Yes!
To protect her.
Yes!
And that you let her die. Power, Lincoln. Real power comes not from hate, but from truth.
Abe continues his training, and this is when I started to realize that the most amazing thing about this movie is how it was made without a hint of irony. They don't make movies like this anymore. Yeah, there are really bad movies, but like, all of them are made ironically, or like, there was a good idea behind them, or like there was like an established intellectual property and somebody just misrepresented it. This is just a truly original piece of garbage. Abe completes his training, Henry says some bullshit about Jesus, then there's this exposition dump which feels like a video game cutscene.
A ruthless enforcer. And her brother.
Henry also explains that vampires are responsible for slavery, which feels more like a QAnon conspiracy theory than most actual QAnon conspiracy theories. Abe shows up to Springfield in 1837.
Anyone in this well-mannered city might very well be one of them.
And starts working in a shop with a man who goes by the name of Mr. Speed.
I need a bit of help.
All right. Well, a friend in need is a friend of speed.
And certainly no woman would find me and my existence enticing.
Abe is working in the store when a woman comes in and asks for help with her grocery list. Lincoln calls her ma'am instead of miss, which was apparently very offensive. Her husband walks in and immediately starts talking about slavery.
How do you feel about keeping slavery out of Illinois? I'm running for the legislature.
Then another person walks in and gives Lincoln a letter. It's from Henry and it's very urgent. Abe is tasked with killing this vampire shop owner, and in a hilarious turn of events, the shop owner is, in fact, a vampire.
Aaron Stibble Jr.?
Yes?
Apparently the vampire has a trap door that goes to a basement with a bunch of nooses, and there are just a bunch of people hanging around all around Abe Lincoln, and this is a serious safety hazard. Like, he's a shop owner. Imagine there's some fucking kids playing around in the store and one of them can't reach the shelf, so they activate the fucking trap door and die. So this vampire is gonna chop Abraham's bitch ass up, but if you actually look at the scene, the character's mouth isn't even moving when he delivers this line.
Don't worry, it'll only hurt for a second or two. It'll only hurt for a second or two.
Abe kills the vampire and gets a bunch of chocolate syrup on his face. Yummy.
To hell with work. We got invited to a ball.
A Cinderella-ass motherfucker.
But that hat makes him look ridiculous. Come on.
Come on. Look, there she is. Mr.
Wait, sorry, what happened to his hat? It's not in the scene anymore. Why would you go out of your way to have a whole scene talking about the hat and having that scene end with him putting the hat on his head, only for the hat not to be anywhere in the next shot? Why don't you just take out the scene where they talk about the hat? Why don't you just do that? Who fucking wrote this? Seth Graham Smith, and it's based on his own novel? He also wrote Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and the Lego Batman movie? Abe wanders around the ball for a while before Mary Todd asks him to dance.
Taken an interest in you. And as for the adventure that you seek, I suspect that few men could ever hope to provide that for you.
Least of all your fiancé, Stephen Douglas.
Mr. Lincoln.
What are you doing, Mr. Lincoln? Abe goes to kill another vampire, and why are all the scene transitions so based? Like, every scene transition in this movie is fucking wild. That's my president! Fuck yeah, America! Abe tells Mary Todd he's Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Each and every night, I go out hunting vampires.
He said it! He said it!
Wow.
No.
My good.
Dude, this movie's so fucking embarrassing. At the end of the date, Mary Todd wants to kiss Lincoln, but she isn't tall enough, so she uses his hat, which works for some reason. Why is the hat as effective as a box? It's made out of cloth. It's made out of cloth. It's made out of cloth! Abraham explains why slavery is good.
All runaway slaves must be returned to their owners.
Until all men are free, we're all slaves.
Will?
Johnson? Lincoln goes to help Anthony Mackie commit tax fraud, and then they get into an epic fight scene.
I suggest you walk away, son.
No, sir. I suggest you do.
I think what's really bugging me about this movie, aside from how shit everything is that this is like the 8th action scene, and none of the action scenes have been good at all so far. Like horror, I get it. Suspense is difficult. Your editors can't be on coke for suspense. But action? Every action scene in this movie is 30 seconds long, and none of it is coherent. So if this movie is a complete failure at being a horror movie, and the action sucks balls, what is the point? I suppose the filmmakers must have been wondering that as well, because the direction of the plot changes after this jail cell scene. It becomes a grounded, more nuanced political piece about the perspective of
Abraham fucking Lincoln.
Well, that lasted about 2 minutes on the generous end. The rest of the scene is horse shit.
Catch me before I get to Mary!
Wow, these guys have been playing some Dark Souls. Last thread got deleted because it devolved into posting graphic pictures of dolphin pussy. Anyway, I just want to address some concerns people have had with my theory that a human with brass knuckles can beat up a horse. This theory is based on the idea that people can beat Dark Souls bosses while taking no damage just by running and rolling, things that any moderately fit human is capable of. Add to that the fact that horses are far weaker than Dark Souls bosses, and it's hard to imagine how a smart and patient gamer isn't a horse's worst nightmare. Fucking hell, dude.
If you can, boy!
They They fall off a giant cliff, even though this movie takes place in Illinois, which is basically the flattest part of this entire fucking country. So you had a gun? When was this established? When has he ever had a gun before? How did that get there? Why is he not used at any other time during the scene or the rest of the movie? So Abe finishes off his childhood demon that killed his mother, and what the fuck is going on with these scene transitions? So this random woman is about to get raped when Henry emerges from the shadows, and it's revealed that he is a vampire, which raises a lot of questions. For example, what level of coincidence has to occur for Abraham Lincoln and Henry to both be right next to the same woman getting raped at the same time? The odds of this are completely incalculable, and even if they could be calculated, I wouldn't want to, because this movie sucks. So we get this flashback from Henry's perspective, who I can only assume has color blindness, and this is a representation kind of choice, because there's absolutely no reason for this scene to be color graded so horribly. Like, I'm genuinely upset. And what is with the fake camera move? Why did that happen? So Henry is fighting these vampires and they start kicking his ass, so his girl comes in to help, but she gets overpowered, and you know how I said the guy playing Henry was a good actor? They kill Henry's girl, and Henry goes to take revenge by stabbing the vampire who did it. But in this universe, vampires can't kill other vampires, which is an insane rule because, like, not even on accident? What about if you're a vampire pointing a gun at another vampire at point blank range? That wouldn't kill the vampire because you're just holding the gun there, but if the other vampire pulls the trigger, is the bullet going to miss from 1 foot away? What if there's an accident? This is obviously a rule that the writers had to make up on the spot so Henry didn't kill the bad guy for the rest of the movie instantly and there could be an antagonist, but I don't understand why they don't just make it like a different condition where turning into a vampire, Henry loses a lot of blood and has to go to sleep for a while, so he can't kill him right then. Anyway, after this long-ass sob story, Abraham Lincoln basically just leaves and says, I don't want to be your friend anymore. Lincoln and Mary are in the store together, and there's some phenomenal acting.
It's nothing.
Abe, I know when you're lying.
And then Abe doesn't want to show her the axe that he's hiding, even though in an earlier scene he already told her he hunts vampires, but now he's hiding it? So, because he doesn't want to show her the giant fucking axe he's carrying, he takes out a ring and asks her to marry him. So, Abe and Mary get married, and I gotta be honest, the fit is fire. The drip is immaculate. Need that expeditiously. The evil vampires make a genius plan to lure Abe into a trap.
We're gonna throw a ball in his ball.
What makes you think he'll accept?
Ball.
They knock out Anthony Mackie as some kind of blackmail to convince Abe to go to the ball that they were throwing for him. This plan sucks.
Ball.
So Abe goes to New Orleans and pulls out his axe, which, wait, how is he able to walk normally in any of these scenes if he's always carrying an axe? So the plan is now not to lure Lincoln into a careful trap, but just to eat black people?
Ladies and gentlemen, dinner is served.
This also sounds more like a QAnon conspiracy theory than most QAnon conspiracy theories. So Abe breaks into the place and instantly just kills 2 vampires super easily. This movie has the most overpowered protagonist I've ever seen. Why the fuck do we need the Avengers when we could just have Abraham Lincoln Thanos Hunter, bitch? Sorry. They start playing this really cool music to show you that the scene is really cool. And then they get even more cool when they do the 300 thing where it speeds up and slows down. And I did not really like the movie 300, but it's somehow worse here. I will say that the action has gotten better in the movie. It's not as creative as the horse scene, but it's at least visually clear and I can mostly tell what's going on.
Bravo, Mr. Lincoln. Bravo. Even better.
Yo, when she pins him down like that. No. Then the villain vampire man explains why slavery is based AF.
Men have enslaved each other since they invented gods to forgive them for doing it.
And then there's this animated section that isn't very long, but the animation is actually really good, and I appreciate that.
Seen Christians thrown to lions with my own eyes.
So the vampire villain man is trying to convince Abe to join his cause and says if he doesn't, he will kill Anthony Mackie and turn Abraham Lincoln into a vampire and force him to drink Anthony Mackie's blood, which is metal as fuck. But then he starts counting down from 5, which is how you know Abe is about to get saved by some bullshit, which is when Speed, reminder that this character's name is Speed.
Speed. I am Speed.
Fucking drifts a carriage, which is insane, but probably sounded better on paper than it actually looks here. So Abe, Anthony Mackie, and Speed escape and hide in this resistance safe house before they head back up to Illinois for some political campaigning. Abe and Henry get into a bit of an argument, so Lincoln chooses to be less of a vampire hunter and more of a vampire president.
To see it another. To see and to feel the... To put aside childish things. I would fight not with an axe, but with words and ideals.
Jesus. Yo, what is this shot? Yo, dude, being president is sick as fuck. Let's film this like a fucking music video. Also, I just want to stress how much this guy just does not look anything like Abraham Lincoln. There's a Civil War montage and another crazy scene transition.
When's the last time you had something to eat?
Not hungry, thank you.
Gotta eat, Abe. You're only human.
Batman has no limits.
Abe does the Emancipation Proclamation, and then the hot vampire Dom from earlier comes in and fucking kills Abraham Lincoln's child in the most dramatic way ever.
What a beautiful silver sword.
So Abe is really sad about his kid dying, but Henry comes in and says, hey, I can make him come back to life if you want to, but he'll be a vampire. And Mary Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's wife, is like, yes, you should do that. And then Abraham Lincoln says this.
Give us our little boy back.
Mary, he wouldn't be our little boy. He would be something else, something terrible.
Even though that's not really true at all, because most vampires generally lead normal lives except for the blood-sucking stuff, and you are friends with Henry, who is in your house right now, and who has been mad normal about the whole thing, so it's not like your kid being a vampire is even really that fucked up. He would just be like a carnivore. Anyway, whatever. Abe says, no, don't turn my son into a vampire, you're so sexy, haha. And then Mary is really mad at him, and Henry says some fuck shit.
How many more boys will have to die before you listen to me?
There's a Civil War fighting scene with a bunch of characters we've never seen before that has very little effect on the plot. And then there's a scene which proves Daniel Day-Lewis did not even do the best Abraham Lincoln performance of 2012.
Our bullets are useless, our bayonets are as powerless as this fork.
Abe realizes the key to winning the Civil War is silver, because that will defeat the vampires.
Is what we need. A fork.
Who are a part of the fucking Confederacy.
Silver. Okay.
Which again sounds like an insane QAnon conspiracy theory, but that's just how this movie rolls, so it's fine.
How much do we need?
All of it.
Speed, whose name is Speed, decides to rat out Abraham Lincoln's plan to the hot vampire girl because he's racist now.
Why tell me this, Mr. Speed? Why betray your friend?
He is my friend, but I love this country even more.
While Abe tells his wife to leave Washington, D.C. because he's preparing to go to battle and takes out his trusty old axe. The bad guy vampires have a plan to intercept the train that Lincoln is on, and we're all set up for a third act showdown. Henry tries to convince Abe that Speed gave him up to the vampires, while Anthony Mackie is fighting a motherfucker. The battle continues, and for the most part, this fight scene is relatively well done. I have to give credit to Anthony Mackie, or at least his stunt double, because as a performer, he does a good job of selling. And then there's shit like that. Ugh. Abe beheads a motherfucker and bends it like Beckham. Anthony Mackie is doing some R2-D2 shit for some reason when he's bailed out by the axe gun. They fight some more vampires, there's some slow motion, there's some CGI blood, and things are generally going really well against these massively underwhelming villains until the big bad guy shows up and catches the axe. Anthony Mackie throws a knife that cuts an ember in half, which is a totally ridiculous visual, and then he gets murked. Abe catches him, and the bad guy villain antagonist man uses this to make a bad guy villain antagonist speech that feels like it was written for people watching a movie in 2012 and not for Abraham Lincoln in 1865.
I'm gonna destroy the myth of Abraham Lincoln so that history will forever know you not as a man, but as a monster!
Henry takes the bite and starts fighting the bad guy villain man. The hot vampire from earlier commits arson so the train tracks will burn over a bridge. Villain antagonist guy is fighting Henry and looks like he might kill him even though that's impossible, so there's really zero stakes here when Henry reveals that the train was all a red herring and there's no silver on this train. Speed sees that the train is doomed and goes to find Abe, but is jumped by the mean villain antagonist bad guy.
Hello, Speed.
Speed reveals that he was actually not betraying Lincoln, but was in fact a triple agent, so he gets bit.
Why did you lie to me?
The whole bridge is coming down when Abe is confronted one last time by the bad guy villain antagonist man.
Where's the silver? Right here!
Fatality.
But the bridge is falling apart, so Henry holds it together for a second so that Abe and Anthony Mackie can jump to safely. Abe says this.
I suppose some vampires can be trusted.
Which is a truly confusing statement because Henry was literally at your wedding and at the White House and was a part of this plan. So I want to know when you weren't trusting him, except for a very brief moment when you only first found out he was a vampire. So the silver arrives at the Union military camps and... Wait a second. That sound effect is a Minecraft zombie sound effect. At the very end of a movie about Abraham Lincoln killing vampires, there's a sound effect from Minecraft of a zombie? Can Mojang copyright strike Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter? Do we need to take legal action? Also, the hot vampire lady dies. The United States defeats the vampires and Abe Lincoln does a speech. He finishes writing his memoirs and says this.
Time waits for no man.
Right before he goes to die.
We're gonna be late for the theater.
Abraham, let me make you immortal. Let us fight through the ages side by side.
But could you imagine if that happened? What if Abraham Lincoln was immortal and just kept getting reelected? What if he was still president today? I know you're thinking, yeah, only 2 terms! But that rule was established after FDR. It's very possible that that amendment wouldn't have been added to the Constitution in this alternate timeline. Oh well, movies about interesting things like that shouldn't be made. The movie does that thing where it ends with the same narration from the beginning.
History prefers legends to men.
And then there's a scene that parallels the one at the beginning too.
A guy only gets that drunk when he wants to kiss a girl or kill a man. So which is it?
But overall, this movie, it's alright.